A few people in my comments section keep asking the same question in different ways. They want to know if there are any Dollar Tree products so good that they genuinely look like a pricing mistake, something a manager somehow forgot to mark up before it hit the shelf. So I spent a week specifically hunting for exactly that, walking through every single aisle with one question in mind: which items make you stop, pick them up, turn them over looking for a hidden catch, and then just stand there a little confused about how this is only $1.25. I found 12 of them, and a few of these genuinely had me checking the price tag twice because I assumed I was misreading it. Stick around until the end, because the last item on this list is the one that made an employee laugh when I asked her about it, because apparently she gets asked about it constantly. Before I get into the list, I want to explain how I actually picked these 12, because I didn't just grab whatever looked cheap on a shelf. I specifically compared each item against a realistic, comparable version sold at a specialty or big box retailer, looking for genuine functional overlap, not just a vague resemblance. If something felt like a clear downgrade in quality or performance, it didn't make the cut, no matter how good the price looked on paper. These 12 genuinely held up under that scrutiny. Number 1. A full-sized beach towel. At $1.25, this shouldn't logically exist. Beach towels at big box retailers or specialty home stores typically run $8 to $15 for a comparable size, and even the cheapest bargain bin versions elsewhere rarely dip below $5 or $6. The size here is genuinely full-sized, not a shrunken travel version trying to pass itself off as a real towel, and the cotton blend absorbs water reasonably well without feeling paper-thin the way you might expect at this price. I actually took one to the beach specifically to stress test it, and after a full day of sand, salt water, and being sat on repeatedly, it held up completely fine through the wash afterward, with no unraveling at the seams. The color saturation is a little less vivid than a pricier printed towel, and the pattern selection changes seasonally rather than offering the huge variety you'd find at a dedicated towel retailer. But for the actual function of a beach or pool towel, this performs indistinguishably from something that costs 6 times more. If you're outfitting a family for summer and need 4 or 5 towels at once, this single item alone can save you real money without any noticeable compromise. I actually grabbed 6 of these for a family beach trip specifically to see how they'd hold up being used by different people with different levels of care, and every single one came back intact. No thinning fabric, no fraying edges, nothing that would suggest a shorter lifespan than a pricier towel. Up next is an item that genuinely stopped me in the aisle for a solid 10 seconds. Number 2. A full-sized, wind-resistant umbrella. At $1.25, this defies basic logic once you actually open it up and see the canopy size. Umbrellas at pharmacies or department stores in a comparable size typically run $10 to $20, and the wind-resistant folding mechanism specifically is usually what pushes the price up in that range. This one has a reinforced folding rib structure that flexes rather than snapping in a gust of wind, which I tested standing outside during an actually windy afternoon, specifically to see if it would turn inside out the way cheap umbrellas famously do. It held its shape through several strong gusts without breaking a single rib. The canopy fabric is a slightly thinner nylon than a premium umbrella, so heavy, sustained downpours over a long walk might see a bit more water seep through at the seams compared to a pricier option. But, for typical rain protection during a normal errand or commute, it performed better than I expected walking in. For a household that always seems to lose or break umbrellas throughout the year, buying several of these as replacements, instead of one expensive umbrella you're afraid to lose, makes a lot of practical sense. There's something genuinely freeing about not babying an umbrella, leaving it in a car, a bag, an office drawer, without worrying about protecting an expensive investment, simply because replacing it costs next to nothing if it does eventually wear out or get left behind somewhere. The next item is one that quietly solves an expensive home maintenance problem. Number 3. A multi-pack of LED light bulbs. At $1.25 for a 2-pack, this genuinely looks like a pricing error once you check what LED bulbs cost at a hardware store, typically $5 to $8 per bulb for a comparable brightness and lifespan rating. LED technology has become dramatically cheaper to manufacture over the past several years, and the actual component cost inside a basic LED bulb has dropped enormously, which explains part of this gap. But even accounting for that, this price still undercuts hardware store shelves by a wide margin. I've had 4 of these running in table lamps around my apartment for a couple months now, with zero flickering or dimming issues, which is often the first sign of a poorly made LED failing early. The color temperature leans slightly cooler and whiter than some warmer, cozier bulbs you might prefer for a living room, so it's worth checking the packaging for the specific tone you want before buying a large batch for the whole house. For anyone replacing bulbs throughout an entire home, the savings here compound extremely fast, and I genuinely can't think of a good reason to pay hardware store prices for basic bulbs after finding this. Doing the math on a typical home with 15 to 20 light fixtures, replacing every bulb with the hardware store version instead of this one could easily mean paying $80 to $100 more for functionally the same light output and lifespan. Moving on to an item that solves a very specific, very annoying grocery shopping problem. Number 4. An insulated reusable grocery bag. At $1.25, this includes actual thermal insulation lining, not just a thicker fabric pretending to keep things cold. Comparable insulated grocery totes at kitchen or grocery specialty stores run $8 to $14 depending on size and brand. I tested this by loading it with frozen items and a few cold drinks, then leaving it in a warm car for about 45 minutes, and everything inside was still noticeably cold to the touch when I checked, which genuinely surprised me for something this cheap. The stitching along the handles felt sturdy enough to hold a reasonably heavy grocery load without straining or tearing, though I wouldn't push it to the absolute weight limit you might trust with a pricier canvas tote. For anyone doing a grocery run in hot weather with any kind of drive home, or anyone trying to cut down on single-use plastic bags without spending real money on reusable ones, this is one of the genuinely useful surprises on this entire list. I now keep 3 of these folded in my trunk permanently, and having them on hand has completely eliminated those moments of scrambling for plastic bags at checkout or watching ice cream start to soften on a longer drive home. Up next is an item that seems almost too specific and too well made for the price. Number 5. A foldable car windshield sunshade. At $1.25, this reflects heat away from a parked car's interior in a way that actually works, based on testing it myself on a genuinely hot afternoon and touching the dashboard afterward, compared to a day without it. Comparable windshield shades at auto parts stores or big box retailers typically run $8 to $15. The reflective material folds down small enough to store in a glove box or door pocket without taking up much space, and it springs back into shape easily when you're ready to use it again, without the material creasing permanently the way some cheaper folding shades eventually do after repeated use. The one limitation is universal sizing, since it's designed to fit a wide range of windshield shapes rather than being cut precisely for any one vehicle, so on unusually large windshields, you might have a small gap of exposed glass at the edges. For anyone parking outside regularly in hot weather, especially with kids or pets who might be in the car briefly, this is a genuinely smart, low-cost addition to keep in your vehicle at all times. The next item is one that fitness-minded shoppers specifically get excited about finding here. Number 6. A yoga mat. At $1.50, this includes actual cushioning thickness, not just a thin rubber sheet that leaves your knees aching during floor exercises. Yoga mats at sporting goods stores or specialty fitness retailers typically run $15 to $30 depending on thickness and material. The surface has enough grip to prevent sliding during standard poses. Tested through an actual workout session where I specifically tried some balance-heavy positions to see if my hands or feet would slip, and they didn't. The material does have a noticeable rubber smell when first unrolled, which faded significantly after airing it out for a day or two. A minor inconvenience, but worth mentioning if strong smells bother you. It's also thinner than a premium studio quality mat, so if you have sensitive knees or joints, doubling it up or adding a towel underneath for extra cushioning during floor work is a reasonable workaround. For anyone starting a home workout routine without wanting to commit real money before knowing if they'll stick with it, this removes almost the entire financial barrier to trying. I've recommended this specific item to 2 friends who were hesitant to invest in a proper yoga mat before knowing if a home practice would actually stick for them, and both ended up using it regularly for months afterward, proof that the low cost of entry genuinely removed the hesitation that was holding them back. Moving on to a kitchen item that performs well above its price point in a way that genuinely surprised me during testing. Number 7. A set of stainless steel measuring cups. At $1.25 for a full nested set, This includes real stainless steel construction, not flimsy plastic that warps in a dishwasher or cracks after a few drops. Comparable stainless steel measuring cup sets at kitchen specialty stores run $8 to $15. The measurement markings are stamped directly into the metal rather than printed on, which means they won't fade or rub off after repeated washing, the way painted measurements sometimes do on cheaper sets. I've run this set through the dishwasher more than a dozen times at this point, with zero rusting or discoloration, which was genuinely my biggest concern going in given the price. The handles are riveted on securely, rather than simply glued or pressed, holding firm even when the cup is full and being lifted with one hand. For anyone building out a first kitchen or replacing a mismatched cracked plastic set, this is one of the clearer upgrades on this entire list for genuinely no real financial sacrifice. The nested design also means the whole set takes up barely any drawer space, stacking down into essentially the size of the largest cup alone, which is a small detail, but a genuinely appreciated one if your kitchen storage is already tight. The next item is one that solves a laundry room organization problem most people don't think to fix until it's already annoying them. Number 8. A pop-up mesh laundry hamper. At $1.50, this folds completely flat for storage and pops open instantly into a full-sized hamper when you need it, a mechanism that usually adds real cost to a laundry organization product elsewhere. Comparable pop-up hampers at home organization retailers run $10 to $18. The mesh fabric breathes well, preventing that musty smell that can develop in a sealed laundry bag left sitting for a few days before wash day. The wire frame inside the rim that gives it its pop-up structure felt sturdy through repeated folding and unfolding over several weeks of regular use, without bending out of shape or losing its ability to spring back open. The capacity is generous enough for a solid week of laundry for one person, maybe stretching it a bit for a larger household needing multiple hampers around the house. For dorm rooms, small apartments, or anyone who values being able to fold something flat and tuck it out of sight when it's not in active use, this checks a lot of boxes for almost no money. Up next is a seasonal item that gardening enthusiasts specifically seek out here. Number 9. A large bag of wild birdseed. At $1.25, the bag size and seed variety genuinely rivals what you'd find at a garden center, charging $6 to $10 for a comparable bag. The seed mix includes a reasonable variety rather than being padded out mostly with filler seeds that birds typically ignore and just kick out of the feeder, which is a common complaint with the cheapest bulk birdseed sold elsewhere. I filled a feeder with this specific mix and watched it over the following week, and the activity level and variety of birds visiting seemed genuinely comparable to a pricier blend I'd used previously in the same feeder and location. For anyone who feeds backyard birds regularly, this is one of those recurring purchases where the savings compounds significantly over a season, since birdseed is something you're buying again and again rather than just once. Over the course of a full spring and summer feeding season, going through a bag every couple of weeks, the savings compared to garden center pricing genuinely adds up to real money by the time the season winds down. The next item is one that crafters and hobbyists specifically get excited about finding in this exact multi-pack. Number 10. A multi-pack of paintbrushes for craft and hobby use. At $1.25 for a set of several different brush sizes, this covers a genuinely useful range of detail work, from fine point work to broader strokes, in a single package. Comparable brush sets at art and craft specialty stores run $6 to $12. The bristles held their shape reasonably well through several painting sessions without excessive shedding, which is the most common complaint with ultra-cheap brush sets elsewhere, loose bristles ending up stuck in your artwork mid-stroke. For basic acrylic or craft paint projects, these perform completely adequately, though for detailed fine artwork with expensive paints, a serious hobbyist might still prefer investing in one or two higher quality brushes for their most important pieces, while using this set for everyday practice and prep work. For anyone just getting into painting or crafting without wanting to commit real money before knowing if it's a hobby that sticks, this removes nearly the entire cost barrier. I've watched a family member start a small painting hobby using nothing but a set like this and a few dollar store canvases, and months later, still enjoying it regularly without ever having felt like they needed to upgrade the brushes to keep progressing. Moving on to a cleaning item that outperforms its price point in a way I genuinely didn't expect. Number 11. A microfiber mop refill pad. At $1.25, this fits standard flat mop handles and picks up dust and light debris noticeably better than a basic cotton mop head, based on testing it side by side on the same section of my kitchen floor. Comparable microfiber refill pads at cleaning supply retailers run $5 to $9 each. The microfiber material held together through multiple wash cycles in my washing machine without unraveling at the edges, which is honestly the main failure point you'd worry about with a cheap microfiber pad. The attachment mechanism, Velcro strips along the underside, gripped my existing mop handle securely without slipping during use, which matters more than people expect, since a pad that shifts around mid-mopping is genuinely frustrating. For anyone maintaining hardwood or tile floors regularly, having a couple of these on hand as backups means you're never stuck mopping with a worn-out, dirty pad simply because you forgot to buy a replacement in time. I keep 2 spares in a cabinet specifically for this reason, rotating them in and out of the wash so there's always a clean one ready without ever having to interrupt a cleaning session halfway through to deal with laundry. And finally, the item that made a store employee laugh when I asked her about it, because apparently she fields this exact question constantly. Number 12. A set of kitchen shears with a built-in bottle opener and nutcracker function built into the handles. At $1.25, this multi-function tool looks like it should cost significantly more simply based on how many separate tasks it handles in one compact piece. Comparable multi-function kitchen shears at kitchen specialty stores run $12 to $20. The blade cuts through raw chicken and kitchen herbs cleanly in my own testing, and the built-in bottle opener notch actually works smoothly rather than being a decorative afterthought that barely functions, which is a common issue with cheaper multi-tool kitchen gadgets. The employee I spoke with said customers regularly come back specifically asking where to find these again after giving one away as a gift or losing their original pair, which she found funny given how genuinely unassuming the packaging looks sitting on the shelf. The pivot point where the blades meet felt slightly looser than a premium pair of kitchen shears after a few weeks of regular use, so it's not quite as precise for very fine cutting tasks, but for everyday kitchen use covering several functions in one tool, this is genuinely one of the most surprising values on this entire list. I've since given 3 of these away as small housewarming gifts, and every single recipient has mentioned using it far more often than they expected for something that started as a stocking stuffer level gift. Mostly because having the bottle opener built right into a tool you already reach for constantly in the kitchen turns out to be more convenient than it sounds on paper. So that's the full list, $12 tree products that genuinely made me pause and double-check the price tag while putting this list together. None of these are flukes or one-off lucky finds. They're consistent, repeatable purchases that anyone can walk in and grab right now. What ties all 12 of these together, when I actually sat down and thought about why they're priced this way, is that each one benefits from some combination of cheaper raw materials becoming more available over the past several years, simpler manufacturing processes that don't require much specialized labor, or massive bulk purchasing power that spreads the cost down to almost nothing per unit. None of that is a secret or a trick. It's just how modern manufacturing and bulk retail actually work when a company is buying at the scale Dollar Tree buys at. Personally, the umbrella and the insulated grocery bag are the 2 I'd point people toward first if they only wanted to try 1 or 2 items off this list, since both solve a real everyday annoyance for next to nothing. Everything else on this list is worth grabbing next time you're already in the store, since none of these require a special trip on their own. But together, they represent some of the best genuine value hiding in plain sight, on shelves most people walk past without a second look. The next time someone tells you a dollar store can't possibly have anything worth buying, this is exactly the list I'd hand them to prove otherwise. I'll add one more thought before wrapping up, because I think it's worth remembering the next time you're walking through any of these aisles yourself. The items that end up on a list like this one aren't randomly scattered throughout the store. They tend to cluster in categories where the underlying materials, plastics, basic metals, simple textiles, LED components, have gotten cheaper industry-wide over the past several years, regardless of which retailer ends up selling them. That's genuinely useful information beyond just this one list, because it means you can apply the same thinking yourself the next time you're browsing. If something is made primarily from a material that's become commodity cheap to produce at scale, there's a decent chance the dollar store version performs a lot closer to the expensive version than the price gap would suggest. If something requires genuine skilled labor, precision engineering, or expensive specialized components, that's usually where you start seeing a real, meaningful quality gap open up between the cheap version and the pricier one. Keeping that distinction in mind has changed how I shop here going forward, and I think it's a more useful takeaway than any single item on this list. 12 genuinely good finds as they are.